that we ain't Night Riders. That we ain't Night Riders.
Welcome. Welcome to the Night Riders Squadcast live stream. You are now rolling with the Night Riders.
Back.
We are in the building once again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a live one tonight.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right.
I see the roaches are here.
Oh yeah, you gotta do some extermination tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of the Night Riders Squadcast. And I am your host, the Dark Knight, and the co-host. Who needs no introduction?
Yeah, no, I am Nightwing.
All right. Yeah, so as you may have guessed, we are going to continue with our dissection and destruction of this whole culture of scamming that it appears to have been going on as of late. And as I mentioned, when I first decided that I was going to stick with this topic for a while, I wanted to make sure that we didn't just let this thing pass without going in and making it an example of the problem that we have when it comes to the Black male image and Black women's role in perpetuating these stereotypes, while simultaneously talking about they want protection, when in reality they're not even willing to protect our image, but they want us to physically put life and limb on the line to protect them. So this is a very important topic, and one thing I am pleased to say is that there have been a lot of people really continuing to keep this going. And like I mentioned, it's okay to talk about other topics, but we need to double back like a fat broad and get back on this routinely. Not to say that we're just going to keep beating a dead horse, but it is of the level that I feel that this particular situation warrants a more extended and more intricate diagnostic or analysis, where we can really get into this thing and pick it apart. And I'm just coming at it from different angles. It's not like we're just going to keep focusing on this brick broad. We're going to really kind of expand the conversation like what we're doing tonight. As you may have noticed, I'm expanding beyond this particular individual, and I'm going into the culture of these scammers. And we're going to talk a little bit about that the queenmaker, and the synthetic cybernetic G, and how they're all connected with this. And by the way, I thought I mentioned it to you before about the KRU, or the Night Riders universe. I'm still going to put out that roster, and in our Night Rider universe, she's Poison Ivy.
Okay.
Cynthia G. Yeah, so just be on the lookout for that. We're going to be putting out a roster. But
Mhm.
anyway, these are all the usual suspects when it comes to trying to demonize black men, and they jumped, well, specifically Cynthia G and others. And I think in next week's show we're going to kind of dive into these um, banshees that are typically the ones to try to continue to denigrate the black male image. But for the purposes of this show, what we want to do is really identify and analyze who keeps funding these scammers.
Mm, I
And
got
I
a
think
good
that,
guess.
yeah, and I think that's a very reasonable question to ask when we talk about what is really going on
Yeah,
in the community.
yeah, that's an excellent question.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we're gonna get into it. Anything you want to add before we start going in on this?
Uh, no, not really. I'm ready to get into it.
Yeah. Now, just to do a little bit of housekeeping, it's definitely um, something that I wanted to mention, and I hadn't been really talking about it, which is, well, as of late, obviously I was talking about it before, but we definitely are putting the finishing touches on getting the studio and everything set up. And what I expect is that maybe sometime next month, which is right around the corner, maybe I would say towards the end or maybe even the middle of next month, we may start, going on cam. How do you feel about that?
That's cool.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about at least broadcasting some shows, because there's actually some things I'm going to do on the Counselor Mr. G channel on from the studio maybe first, just to kind of christen it and kind of get it started. Because there's a couple of things I need to address over there, so I might drop some videos from the studio on the Counselor Mr. G channel, and continue to put some content over there. But I just want to make you aware that we're going to start doing some shifting and kind of going back to what I said initially, as far as going ahead and uh, going on cam, starting to maybe bring guests over, things like that. Maybe because we're approaching 2,000 subs.
Mm,
So I think by the time we hit 2,000 subs, then I will maybe start doing the whole guest things and
collabs.
the collabs and all
Yeah,
of that.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
just to
cool.
kind of show that we were able to, on the muscle, just kind of do it on our own without trying to use other bigger YouTuber brands and all of that. I think 2,000 subs is a good platform to by which to jump on that.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Because I
cool.
kind of like getting stuff out the mud, and I don't want people to be like, oh well, you got to get so and so over here. And not that I really care what people are saying, but it's just for
Yeah,
my own, um, just for the sake of the content that we're producing on our own without having to get a bigger name over here. We can just kind of build it from the ground up.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
But I did have a lot of other projects, things that I want to make sure that we do. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But I just wanted to kind of mention that here briefly. Oh, and we definitely have some good stuff that's going to be coming on Patreon. I actually uploaded another video that you're not going to see anywhere. It
Mm,
was a trip that I took back to my hometown, Chicago. This
mm,
was a couple years ago, and I got footage that's never been seen before of a woman trashing a gas station. I just happened to roll up, and it
mm,
was a black woman going off, and I got that footage on Patreon. So y'all got to go over there,
mm.
check it out. It's crazy, but it's gonna be some crazy stuff when we're gonna be putting over there. So I just want you to know we're uploading stuff over there. I got some other. We got a way now to kind of put certain downloadable products on the Patreon as well, because as you guys know, you can access through the Patreon. You can get access to the website and get special deals if you do it that way. But I'm also going to be able to put particular downloadable content, such as videos, of course, audios, and also things like ebooks and a lot of other good information. You're just gonna look over there. It's gonna be just a stock full of stuff, right? I haven't got around to it. I was able to get that video up, about a few days ago. So it's funny, crazy, but that's unseen footage. No one has ever seen that. So you can
Mm,
go. You can actually. You don't even have to join Patreon to see it. You can buy the video. I think I got it for like $3 or something. You could just download. You can get the video, and you can go get it yourself if you want. You don't have to join the Patreon. Just go get the video. I'm gonna be putting other content up there too, like that, where people just, if they don't want to join the Patreon, which I don't know why you wouldn't, because it's gonna be crazy. I'm telling you. I got a lot of stuff in the vault that's gonna be going over there, but definitely I'll be putting little things on there for maybe just a couple of dollars here and there, just to get people, involved in the Patreon. So I got a way to do that now.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm definitely gonna watch that.
Yeah, it's gonna be some crazy stuff. Look, that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's gonna be some crazy stuff over there. I'm telling you, it's never been seen before. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But let's get right into this this whole topic, and I want to start it out with a specific concept, and I think that this is gonna kind of be the overarching theme of this particular conversation, and that is, are Black women funding the very problems they complain about?
Yep.
So what's your take on that, and elaborate on what you think about that statement?
Yeah, I think they definitely are, and they tend to be their own destruction. They and it's like they don't even care. That's the sad part about it. But yeah, they definitely fund their own problems, and then they turn around and they complain about what they created. I think that's kind of insane too.
Yeah, I mean that's contained within the statement, which is they're funding the very problems that they complain about.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on any particular instances or examples that you could think of?
Yeah, for one, that what we talked about last week with Tyler Perry, comparing him to Frankenstein, and most Black women are pretty much Dr. Frankenstein that created Frankenstein. So yeah, that's a perfect example. And then probably Derek Jackson, that would probably be another example. He just tells them what they want to hear. That's pretty much just what they want. They just want to hear things that feel good to them, and that's destructive. So.
Yeah, and that's why I have the thumbnail looking the way it does. If you notice, the chaos in the background, the destroyed neighborhood, and the women, making it rain, putting up the money.
Yeah.
And you got the likes of Cynthia G and this queenmaker coming up behind her, and of course that brick broad in the form of roaches. And the statement that I was making with that was to show that these women are the ones who are funding these women like Cynthia G, who we can break down and show that she is indeed a scammer, and that she is a hypocrite, because we all know about her lived experience in terms of being the 5th or 6th baby mama, and all of the other contradictions and things that she's done, which and overall undermine the image of Black women, promoting all the things that she promotes in terms of Black women to be bitter as opposed to getting true healing. She's just creating this incubator of toxicity that is actually harming Black women and causing them to maintain these negative experiences that they have. And she's part of the problem, and they're paying her in the form of subscribing to her, giving her whatever donations she's getting. And meanwhile, it's kind of like a drug, right?
Yeah.
Are very susceptible to things like you mentioned earlier about just emotion. They get charged and they have this trauma bond where they're all just sitting around like this witch's coven, and they're just sitting around being bitter, and that's actually hurting them, and there are no real solutions coming from that. So in effect, they are just going to be creating more things to complain about, and they're funding it.
Yeah.
That's what's going on.
Yeah. That's a perfect analogy of how they are. It is like a witch's cult, where they're gathering around the cauldron and pretty much making a pot of brew of their own to do what they want to do with it. But yeah, it's very
Hey, you're giving
disturbing.
away next week's thumbnail. I don't. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. 'Cause I think that was going to be next week's thumbnail. But anyway,
Yeah, that's just what it is, man. And it's like I said, it's destructive, man. It's very destructive. But it seems like they don't care.
yeah, it's just a temporary rush that they get from these. No matter how fake or fraudulent a situation is, they seem to get off on that immediate
Oh yeah,
um, rush.
yeah,
Just like when it comes to blaming black men for their problems,
yeah,
they get to have that pleasure of not being accountable, while at the same
yeah,
time, it's just making the situation worse.
yeah, yeah. And that's disturbing in itself as well. You push off responsibility to someone else that you should take accountability for, and it's like that you should, but you're not, and that goes beyond immature, really. In my opinion, so I just feel like they most of them pretty much just push off responsibility onto somebody else and push blame onto somebody else. They don't look within. Most of I have yet to see a woman in my lifetime that I personally know that would take accountability. I can honestly say that.
The only woman I've ever noticed that did it on a consistent basis that
Mm,
was in my life and my family was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother.
okay.
Yeah, she was one of the women that I've and I mentioned last week about some of my upbringing, but she was very unique in that she was always very accountable.
Mm,
And unfortunately, my mom and her would clash because my mom was one of those types who didn't necessarily want to be accountable, right?
okay.
And
Yeah.
my grandmother always was, and I always tended to kind of get along better with my grandmother than I did my mother, actually.
Mm,
Not that I didn't get along with my mother, but I've
mm,
always felt a more, with regard to my relationship, ever since I was young, I can remember I always kind of, because she was always more logical and my mother tended to be more emotional about things,
mm,
right?
yeah.
So it was like that. But yeah, I did. It may have been a few others, but she stands out. Like my
Mm,
maternal grandmother was one woman who I felt was very much against the norm, against the
mm,
default position that women normally have, that knee jerk reaction for them to not really want to be accountable for things.
yeah. Yeah. The era of the grandmothers, that was definitely the era of honorable women. So
Right.
yeah, shout out to all the loving grandmothers.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I believe my great grandmother may have been like that too, but I
Mm,
was a little bit I didn't deal with her as much because I
mm,
was younger and we didn't, that was big mama, grandma,
yeah.
and I was never able to deal with her on the same type of level as my grandmother, so I didn't get a chance to assess her as much. But I think she was like that too because she was kind of like a central figure in our family. But
Mhm,
um, yeah, it's kind of few and far between. Even if you look at your own family, and to some extent, it's just a normal thing, but um certainly when it gets to the point where it's destructive, just like we talked about with this guy, what's his name, Kurt Franklin,
mhm.
and how his mother lied to him about who his father was,
Oh yeah.
and how destructive that was possibly to his life, and how she never even took accountability, even when they had two DNA tests to prove that the guy was the father. She was still denying it.
Mm,
So that's a level of
yeah.
unaccountability that is the destructive. That's where you get, if you look at that thumbnail, that level of unaccountability is how you get the neighborhoods looking like that.
Yeah, that's beyond crazy. After two DNA tests, you still deny it. Oh man.
Yeah, because this all comes full circle
Mm,
because the lack of accountability is what creates the destruction of the so-called community.
Yeah.
It destroys, because what happens is you have women who are not accountable for their choices of mates that they're having. They're mating with the lowest form of men. They're producing the lowest form of children, which in effect create the destructive uh, environment that you see in those neighborhoods. You
Yeah.
see how it all branches out from their lack of accountability. They're not making the right choices in men.
Yeah.
They're taking very serious issues, which is who they're planning to reproduce with, which is a
Yeah.
very important and serious thing as it relates to the larger community. And
Yeah.
they're doing it out of fun and whatnot, and out of recklessness. And it's a bunch of them doing it. So that creates what we see out in those communities.
Right. Yeah. I'm gonna arrange my daughter's marriages.
Yeah, I mean that's not a bad thing to do, and
Yeah.
and hopefully she doesn't get indoctrinated with enough feminism to try to reject your um, overtures to do that.
No. She's going to. I'm going to pick who she marries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, how old is she now?
My daughter is 23. She's about to be 24 in November.
Okay, well, yeah, she's grown, so yeah, I mean, at this point, yeah, you definitely need to make sure you stay on top of that, and
Yeah.
if you're gonna do it, because I know you have plans to leave and everything, so that may be something you want to get on right away.
Oh yeah, I've been working on it for a few years now. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
her
but
but her mom, she pretty much instilled a lot of her ways in her and stuff. So, you know, I still got to tread lightly. But yeah, I'm leaving, so I got a lot of challenges in front of me. Yeah, but I can only do what I can do as a dad. You know what I mean?
yeah, but unfortunately, there's no culture of that. What you're proposing would be definitely a rare situation in the so-called Black community, because that we haven't probably seen things like that in about 100 years or
Yeah,
something, where that was actually something that people would do, like the
yeah,
fathers would actually arrange and things like that. So
yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and if I don't succeed, it was a big challenge to try to accomplish. But I have to try. You know what I mean? You know,
right, exactly.
I have to try it for the betterment of my daughter's lifestyle and the way she lives. So
Hmm. Yeah, and so like I said, I spoke about how these women are funding the very problems they complain about in the
yeah,
form of people like Cynthia G. And now we got coming up the rear is this other female who goes by the queenmaker. And here we go again. It's like Yogi Berra said, it's like deja vu all over again. And some people have coined her as uh, Cynthia G 2.0, in that she is pretty much um, of the same ilk, in that she is still selling, being a snake oil salesman and telling these women a bunch of lies and things that are inconsistent with reality.
yeah,
And one thing I've noticed is pretty disturbing about her is that she unfortunately seems to resonate with women in such a way that I noticed in some of the interviews that she's done, there seems to be some weird deference that women are giving her. I mean, you'll see women like taking notes as she's speaking.
mm,
You'll see women nodding and agreeing with her. I'm like,
mm.
they're actually buying this bullshit.
Yeah. She says what they want to hear,
Yeah.
and she's very masculine. Princella is. I don't. I just heard of her maybe a month ago. I don't know much about her, Princella. I don't know much about her.
Yeah, there's
But
nothing much to her, other than, she's gaining traction, which kind of ties into the point that we're making,
mm,
that these who keeps funding these scammers. She's coming out, and she's a scammer in that her whole modus operandi is to hijack concepts and ideas from men, the very men that she claims don't have love or cannot, or in some way inferior to females. She seems to have a very strange habit of hijacking male or men's ideas and trying to remix them and turning them into a package that she can resell to her female constituency, which I find pretty ironic, because if you're so great, then come up with your own independent concepts.
Yeah, Saint in the Center. Shout out to him. I seen that. He dismantled it.
Yeah, I think I saw part of that too, just clips of it. Yeah, but it was light work, because she is essentially a clown, and there's no reason for her to be gaining any type of traction other than these, as I called them in the this particular. Let me read it. What I said in this, when I put the notes for the show, I kind of thought of what I would call her followers. And let me see, let me find it here. I was talking about how they're just blindly, because you know what a lemming is, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I call them a legion of lady lemmings. Yeah, they're a legion of lady lemmings who are just following this woman down off a cliff, because nothing that she says is sustainable. And I think I heard on one interview she had where she claimed that this term, the queenmaker, was something that someone that they would call her that, which I think is dubious. I mean, she probably started calling herself that, but anyway, she claimed that people were calling her that. My question is, what queen have you made? Where are they? And what the hell are they doing to qualify as a queen? And this whole concept of a queen maker is a ridiculous concept, because that's not even a thing. If you look up queen maker as opposed to king maker, which is an actual thing, you can actually go and look in Webster's or whatever dictionary of your choosing, and you would actually see a definition of a king maker in there. You will have historic examples of king makers, right? Because it's an actual thing.
Right.
There's no definition of a quote queen maker. When you look it up, you're not going to see a definition. You're going to see some weird Korean movie of the same name, Queen Maker, or some other movie title, but you're not going to see it as an actual thing in reality. Because as I mentioned in that classic video that we made where we dissected her in terms of the chess thing, we showed that a queen can only be made by a king.
Right.
Which slapped her right in the face from her standpoint, which is that somehow a man can't make a queen when that's the only one that can make a queen.
Right.
And like I said, it's not even a thing. Queen maker. It doesn't. There's no practical example of that ever in history. About someone.
Most women don't live in reality.
Yeah, because by definition, once you have a king, any woman that he chooses to bring to that level is a queen.
Yeah.
So it's redundant to talk about a queen maker when they are literally created at the whim of a king.
Right.
He can make just like in chess. You get enough pawns on the board, you can have as many queens as you want.
Yeah.
But you can't get another king though in chess.
Nope.
Right.
Sure can.
Yeah, and you can get multiple queens. Like I said, remember when I pulled up the history of Nubia and showed some of those kings, how many they had, like 5, 4, 5, 6 queens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you make it. That's how you're a queen maker. You think those women started out as queens? No, they became queens because that king said, "Oh, you know what? I like her. I'm gonna marry her." Now, she's a queen.
Yeah.
That's how a queen gets made. Not some. There's no sophisticated process behind it. Now, when it comes to a king, you will have all kind of intrigue going on. You got battles. You got, power struggles. You got all kind of things that go into the making of a king.
Yeah.
That's why there's a definable process that you can look up, or people, key figures that you could look up throughout history and antiquity that will show you examples of kings being made, and
Yeah.
particular individuals who have made kings.
Yeah. Yeah. That goes with the narrative of men are being equal to women and vice versa. Look, men and women are not equal. Okay, we are not made equal. All right, and that's along with the Me Too movement. You can't do what we do. Okay, you can't do what we do, and that's just what it is. We are the dominant of of we are the dominant of who we are, and you can't dominate over a man if you're a woman, because we're not equal. You can't do what we do.
And I think I heard her even try to downplay the importance of the dominance of men, and she was
Yeah.
trying to kind of frame it as if that was some type of negative,
She
right?
said we're delusional.
Oh, really? Isn't that's pretty interesting coming from
Yeah,
her?
yeah, yeah. She said in her interview that most of us are delusional, and we can't be we can't be taught.
Now, what specific thing was she claiming we're delusional about? That ought to be interesting.
I was just in and out when Obsidian was doing the interview with with Princella and the other chick, but I heard that I heard her come out of her mouth said we most of us are delusional and we can't be taught anything.
Well, again, when I hear her and Cynthia G saying these particular things that are
Yeah,
more applicable to them, all they're doing is taking what they've heard men say about women, and they're trying
mhm,
to reverse it. And Cynthia
yeah,
G is very um, known to do that. Every time somebody hits her with a good insult, then she tries to flip it back on them, and it doesn't even work.
mm. I never watched Cynthia G. I don't even watch her podcast. I
Yeah, I
never
don't
watched her
either. But
podcast.
I'm just saying, back in the day, I used to see like clips of her like going back with somebody, and I would always try to get the other side. So I would listen, just like when because I made video against her, so I've had to suffer through that nails on the chalkboard voice and all that other stuff because I was making content. So if I made some videos about her, I've had to watch her content for that to
Yeah,
destroy her talking points.
yeah,
So I have had an opportunity to see her thought process and how she kind of responds to people when they say things about her, and she is very unimaginative and uncreative in that she will typically just take what someone else says and she'll remix it or reframe it
mhm,
and basically give it back to them. And we always would say that was dud or something. You remember when we were kids and we used to sit around doing the dozens or whatever,
mhm,
and you come up with something creative and then somebody else tries to say the same thing to you. Everybody would be like, man, that was whacked, right?
mhm. Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
man, come up with your own material, right?
yeah, yeah,
But that's how she is, and that's how this Princella chick is. She's taking key concepts that were made and created and invented by men, and she's just trying to flip the narrative, and it's not applicable. Just like her saying that men are delusional, which is ridiculous. If men were delusional, the world would not look the way it is in terms of the progress that has happened, the logical things that have happened, the development that has happened over the years. We'd be somewhere like one feminist said, if women were in charge, we would still be in mud huts somewhere
yeah, yeah,
in terms of development.
yeah,
And one thing that she said before as well that was pretty ridiculous was that men somehow can't love, or men are not capable of thinking outside of sex or something to that degree. And
yeah,
the thing that was very interesting is that if what she said was true, then you would have nothing in society that was built. That's like
yeah,
you and I doing this podcast right now.
yeah.
All we think about is sex, and if we and all that, that's all we do. Then how are we taking time to do this or build something or do anything or work? See, these things are self-evident there of how ridiculous she is, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
thinking that men can't love. See, that was a thing that men were saying about women. And
Mhm.
the reason why, because men can love women intrinsically.
Yeah,
Women
yeah,
typically love men based on what they can do for them.
yeah,
That's why
yeah.
men say that. It's not that women can't love men. Men would say, because there's something called agape love, and men are capable of that type of love where a woman doesn't even have to do anything for them.
Mhm.
We can love a woman intrinsically just because of who she is.
Yeah,
And it's understood that women don't necessarily love men based on specifically who they are. It's typically what they can do for them.
yeah,
And that's how it was normally framed. But men are clearly capable of love because you have countless examples in history of men giving giving up all kinds of things and abdicating themselves as kings. How many men, how many women have given up royal positions for a man? I'm not saying it's never happened, but there are more examples of men who have advocated their authority over a woman as opposed to men. I was just reading
mhm,
about King Solomon and how he
mhm.
had like 700 wives, and he basically threw away the kingdom over his wives because he fell in love with them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But there are other historic figures who did that and worse in terms of for the love of a woman.
yeah, yeah. We definitely are capable of love. I don't know
Yeah,
where you got that from.
yeah, we're the main ones that are capable of love. In fact, that's what has gotten human beings to the point that we're at.
Yeah,
And some of these same women would not even exist if not for some man in their history. If it was not their father, it may have been their grandfather or their great grandfather who loved somebody that went out and fought that wild animal or did something to protect his family. We
mhm,
all got, I know I do. I got all kind of stories of, what my grandfathers have done and, fighting off, people and doing stuff to protect their family,
yeah,
and they
yeah,
should know about their history, and if
yeah,
they, I guarantee you, these same women running around complaining about what black men ain't doing and how we can't love them are here because some man somewhere in their past loved them and sacrificed for them
yeah,
in some
yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah. They, I don't know. It's just like I keep iterating, keep saying, men are the givers, and women they're pretty much the takers. It's their nature to take, and it's our
Yeah,
nature to give. It's our nature to build. It's
yeah,
their nature to nest.
right. And there's nothing wrong with those relative positions as long as the roles are being done with the integrity and the responsibility that they should have.
Yeah,
Women's responsibility is to receive the protection and the provision from the man, but they are supposed to nurture that man and appreciate and show and rejuvenate that man in the form of their deference, in the form of their submission and obedience, so that that motivates him to do it.
yeah,
That's their role in it. If they're sitting up there trying to uh, kick back and just expect all of these different provisions and they do not do their part of that social contract, then it's broken.
yeah,
Then there is
mm,
there's no negotiation.
yeah, yeah,
What you have is is an attempted robbery where you want to get all these benefits, but you don't want to pony up what your responsibility is, and then it just ain't gonna work. And that's why they
yeah,
run into these problems.
yeah. They just feel like they just deserve and entitled to just take everything that they want,
Yeah,
but
and
I don't know.
unfortunately, they now we have, which is tied into this topic, we have a whole industry of these women who are funding these snake oil salesmen, these liars and scammers who are just telling them what they want to hear, and they're paying for themselves to be deceived, and ultimately it's going to end badly for them, but they're paying for their own destruction.
Yeah,
And as we are mentioning, just like in this title, that this caption I have on here, are black women funding the very problems they complain about? And I think based on what we've just mentioned over the past 20 minutes or so, I think that would be an affirmative. That would
oh
be
yeah, oh yeah,
they're doing that.
definitely.
And that leads me to the next thing, which is black women, and I mentioned this last week, black women make up 70% of spending in the black community.
Yeah.
And the reason why that's an important number is because anything that you see happening in the black community, I don't care what it is, whatever agendas, whatever degradation, whatever debauchery, dysfunction, I don't care what it is. You can talk about the state of hip hop currently. You can talk about what's on TV, what's on BET, whatever's going on in the community. It's being funded in part or in whole by black women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they are the spenders in the community.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
If you want to talk about the churches, if you have a problem with the way the church system works in these jackleg pork chop preachers that aren't doing anything in the community but taking tithes and giving people false doctrine, guess who is making up the majority of the people that are putting their butts in those pews in the church? Those would be the women.
Yeah.
Because black men have left the church a long time ago because we saw it was bullshit and that it's not doing what it should be doing, even just from a community standpoint, much less from a spiritual standpoint.
Yeah. 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 God's not in church temples. He's not there. That's what Acts 17:24 says.
Yeah. So it's a entire disgrace and it's a fraud. And again, you have the women funding this.
Yep.
The fact that you have this infrastructure of these storefront churches everywhere that aren't doing anything for the community, and you have these women that are funding that is the problem.
Yeah.
And that in effect creates the fact that they're lost, and it becomes this vicious cycle where once again they're funding their own destruction.
Yeah. And how much you want to bet they are pretty much blaming us for that too?
Yeah, so that's the thing that's so crazy is that they are clearly the ones that are the predominant forces behind the majority of the things that are going on. Because like I said, that's why I got this number on the screen, 70% of the spending. That means that you are literally creating whatever environment you're complaining about.
Yeah. Yeah. That's almost 3/4 the majority. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's across the board. When we say spending, we're talking about if you don't have any proper like they talk about food deserts, right? Not having the proper groceries, not having the proper nutrition, all these greasy spoon restaurants everywhere, this fast food everywhere. 70% of that is being spent by women. They're not cooking, they're not giving their children proper nutrition. They are spending on these fast food establishments. And that's what is creating a lot of the obesity that we see. I did a stat, and I was probably the only one that brought out this stat. I put it on the Obsidian show as well, when I pointed out the fact that 27% of black girls between the ages of 6 and 11 are obese, compared to I think it's like 11% for white girls of the same age. And compared to African girls on the continent of Africa, throughout all those different countries, the 52 countries in Africa, you know what the percentage is?
I forgot.
It's 5%.
Okay.
So it's only 5% obesity rates across the continent of Africa, which has over 1 billion people.
Yeah.
Probably more than like 2 or 3 billion. And you only have a 5% percentage in obesity. Meanwhile, so-called African American girls between the ages of 6 and 11 are 27% of them are obese. That is sickening.
Yeah, that is. That's really sickening.
We're not talking about overweight, which would be bad enough. We're talking morbidly obese, meaning these girls probably have diabetes or some major issue at the age of 6 through 11.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's again,
disturbing.
how do they get like this? Who's buying the groceries? Who's
single
buying the
mother.
fast food? The single mother, right? That they're spending this money and creating these problems.
Yeah.
Their purses and pocketbooks are weapons. They're funding the destruction that we see in the community.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
They don't want,
essentially what's going on.
but they don't want to take accountability for that. They don't want to admit that they are destroying themselves.
Yeah, and they're
And
doing
we
it
have to,
as they're doing it as a function of just um their lifestyle.
mm,
Lifestyle is killing them. It's just like somebody, like, getting back to the point about obesity, right? If someone's
mm,
obese and they're overeating, it's literally they're eating themselves to death.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just like the lifestyle that they're eating, the types of food they're eating, the abundance of food that they're eating is literally killing them. So it's paradoxical in that you're supposed to eat to live. So the type of food you're supposed to eat, you should have a balanced diet. You should eat fruits and vegetables, and it's okay to eat certain things here and there, meat and other things, but you should have a well balanced diet, because therefore then you'll eat to live and you'll be healthy and in shape, right? And you should
Right.
have a substantial amount of exercise as well.
Yeah.
But they don't have
Yeah.
the exercise, they don't have the right eating habits. So what they're doing is in effect funding it with their, buying this destructive, high calorie, high fat, high sugar food, and they're being scammed by the food companies because all of these ingredients, this high fructose corn syrup, all of this garbage that they're putting into these foods, these artificial sweeteners, these artificial flavors. That's another way that these women are funding the scammers in the community, because they're selling their wares in these stores. There are certain products that when you start traveling, you can't even see these products internationally. They don't sell them.
Mm,
Countries ban them.
mm,
I know that for a fact.
mm. I got to
When you
see that
go,
for myself.
yeah, when you go to certain countries,
Mm,
like, for example, you go to a food a cereal aisle, right?
mm,
In the States, you got it wall to wall, a bunch
yeah.
of sugary, artificial color, artificial sweetener. I mean, rows of this stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen them. Yeah.
In some countries, you know how big the cereal aisle is?
Yeah.
It's one end cap.
Really?
Yeah, where I live, it's only one end cap. And you know what's on that shelf?
What's on it?
You either have something like wheat flakes,
Mm,
rice based like flakes, or corn flakes, something like that. All this kicks and tricks and Lucky Charms,
Lucky
they don't even
Charms.
sell it. They don't even
Oh,
sell it.
wow. Oh, wow.
You can't get none
Mm,
of that.
too much sugar.
Yeah, but when you go to America and you see just aisle full, side by side, nothing but a bunch of sugar, artificial, high fructose corn syrup stuff. And you know what high fructose corn syrup is, right?
Oh, yeah. I can't even touch that stuff because I'm a borderline diabetic.
Yeah, that stuff is crazy. And they put it in
Yeah.
everything.
Everything. Yeah.
And when I was in the States, I used to make sure that I would read thoroughly everything, because I was surprised that it would end up in stuff that you wouldn't even expect. It was in crackers.
Mm,
It was in
yep.
all things that were not even necessarily sweet. They would stuff that stuff in it because do you know how it's made?
No, I don't know how it's made, but I know it's synthetic though. It's synthetic sugar.
Well, yeah, I mean, let me briefly tell you how it's made.
Hmm.
What they do, it's a very cheap process, because what they do, they take, because corn, right?
Yeah.
They don't even take the actual corn itself. They take the corn husks.
Mm,
You've had real ears of corn before, right? Like when you
yeah.
peel it back and you get the green leaves, the corn stalk or the corn husks and all that, right?
Yeah.
So they take all the corn husks and they put it in a vat of chemicals,
Mm,
mercury and all this kind of stuff. It's high in mercury. That's one of the other downsides of high fructose corn syrup. You know what mercury can do to you,
yeah.
right? Over
Yeah. Just a little bit. Yeah. Just a little bit can be toxic and lethal.
Yeah, but that's one of the byproducts of the process they use to extract the fructose from that process. They use a bunch of chemicals, big old vats of chemicals, right? Because I've seen how they make it, and they just put all these corn byproducts in there, and they just do a chemical process, extract the fructose, and that gives you that sweet flavor. And they call it corn syrup, but it's just an extraction from that process, and then it's a cheap sweetener. So it's a very cheap. So they can get a lot of. They can yield a lot of it through that process, and as opposed to using real sugar, which is still not good for you. But this Franken food that they're making in terms of this high fructose corn syrup with the mercury and all that is far more dangerous than regular sugar.
Yeah.
And it's because it's so cheap, they put it in everything as a cheap sweetener. Because Americans are addicted to sweet and fat, sugar and fat.
Yeah. It's very addictive. I got to read everything too. I got into the habit of doing that because I had to.
Yeah. I mean, because once I discovered, because I remember these were years ago when I was still living in the States, I got so thorough with it that even foods that I had in my pantry or in my shelves, because once I discovered high fructose corn syrup and how negative it was and what it actually could do to you and all that, I went and I cleared out my shelves. I had food that was already in there, and I went and threw all that food away. I probably threw away about $200 worth of food.
Oh wow!
Once I figured out, because I had a bunch of stuff in there, and I just started reading the label. And this was stuff I had to start buying. I bought and kind of just stocked up prior.
Yeah.
Because I had a nice, pantry, right? And I would just kind of have food, canned goods, whatever in there. And that stuff, I was just going through the labels and just looking. I was like, damn, this stuff is everywhere. I just had to throw it all out. I didn't even give it away. I was like, I'm gonna throw this out.
Yeah, you can't get it to nobody.
But this is it's in everything though.
Yeah.
And the fact that the FDA, so-called Food and Drug Administration, kind of oversees all this, and I guess they say, oh well, a certain amount is okay for human consumption. I'm like, dude, this is literally toxic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I can't eat too much of that high fructose corn syrup stuff, or I'll get sick. Like my feet will start to tingle and everything. I mean, tingle real bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, people just don't know this stuff, and like I said, unfortunately, a lot of people in America just are not aware of how other countries take their food very seriously, and some stuff they won't even let America export. Like I said, these high fructose corn syrup foods are not allowed in many countries around the world.
Yeah.
A lot of these artificial flavors and colors that they use, it's crazy. And like I said, in some countries that you can't even see none of that stuff. They don't even put it on the shelf. So I don't have to read the labels as much as I used to, because I know that they don't even import that stuff here. But you definitely, if you're in the States, even if you go to restaurants and all that, they really use it heavy in the restaurants as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So just be aware of that. But yeah, that ties into what we're talking about as far as how, unfortunately, Black women are the ones that are funding a lot of these, not just individuals, because up until now we were just, using examples like Cynthia G and this queenmaker and this, brick bitch, but these are just some small examples. This is an industrial scale of deception and scamming, and Black women, we talked about it in the form of the religious situations, such as the church system and how corrupt that is, and how Black women are funding that, and in the food industrial complex, how they're funding to be scammed in that as well.
Yeah.
And we don't even need to get into the politics of it and how Black women make up most of the Democratic Party in the Black community.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, there's a whole nother show. Yeah. Yeah, they definitely fund that. They fund just about everything that could destroy them, basically.
Yeah, I gave you the number right there, 70, and that's at least 70%.
That's
across the board. That's everything.
Mm.
So like I said, if you have an issue with things that you see in the Black community, if you have a problem with the spiritual system, i.e., the church system, if you have a problem with the lack of nutritious foods and the overrepresentation of fast food and all this different garbage that's being sold, if you got a problem with the Korean hair industry being dominated by foreigners and they're going in with, setting up shop in the black communities, taking the money out, and all these other Asian groups, you got a problem with any of that stuff, then look no further than the ones who are funding that.
Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the problem I have with it is that they're funding it to be scanned, because if you look into any of those industries, they're all ripping them off.
Yeah.
They're all selling them cheap, in many cases dangerous products.
That's an addiction in itself, is spending money, right? That could be an addiction.
Yeah,
That could
a lot of
definitely be an
a lot
addiction.
of women have that. That's why they had something called um what was it, shopping therapy or something, or so they had some name for it,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah.
they would go shopping as a form of catharsis, as a form of feeling good, spending
Mm-hmm.
money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 I mean, it's like impulse buying on steroids.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy, man.
but it's like everything that they're buying has a negative impact on them long term.
Oh, they
There,
don't care.
there may be a short term gratification that they get from it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the appeal, but they overindulge. That's why we have a 80% obesity rate among black women, and it's 60% obesity. It's 80% overweight, 60% obese,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
which is insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But that's a testament to the addiction, like you were talking about spending, or these pleasures. Now, a lot of it comes from trauma, and unfortunately, if you look into their lives, you'll see that it's because of decisions that their mother or someone made. Because a lot of these women, they pass down their trauma to their daughters, and like I mentioned, the earlier stat with 6 to 11-year-olds who are obese, that's abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So when these
Yeah.
women grow up, they're already traumatized,
Yeah.
and they know,
Already.
and they're already dealing with whatever because their mother was feeding them all this garbage, and their default position is to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and
Makes.
then all the negativity that comes with that, because they're not going to get the type of men that they may want, the men of
Mm-hmm.
value, because none of us who have two nickels to rub together want an obese woman.
Right. Right.
So, but they're already losing before. So you got almost 30% of black women even losing the game before they even get started. If they're 6 to 11 and they're already obese, by the time they reach adolescence, they really going to be obese, because it's very difficult for them to break those habits as children, and they've already used
Mm-hmm.
to eating a certain way. They've been trained
Mm-hmm.
to do
Yeah.
this since their
Yeah.
youth. So it'd
Mm-hmm.
be very extremely difficult for them to. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying that some of them have not done it, but it will be extremely difficult for them to do that
Yeah.
after being trained from the age of 6 to 11 to be obese. And we got 30% of black girls at least under that type of situation.
Yeah. And as they get older, they get more set in their ways, and then they have children of their own. They have daughters of their own, and then the cycle continues, and that's sad. Yeah.
Yeah. And this leads me to my next point, which is, if we tie it back to this whole brick gate scandal once again, black women seem to back anyone financially who excuses their behavior or blames black men.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, there was no reason for this woman, this Rhoda, brick chick to come out of nowhere, come up with this story, which was implausible, really, and to just off the bat just believe her and start immediately trying to shame black men and throwing money at her the way they did.
Yeah, yeah, it's really crazy, man. It's really crazy. It's like a cult. It's like a
It
cult,
is a
man.
cult. That's exactly what it is. I mean, it's and like most cults, it's going to end badly for them because they're not based in reality. They're based in someone's delusion.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fortunately, there are a remnant of women out there that won't fall for this and don't be a part of this. So kudos to them.
Yeah, but I mean, that's there's few and far between, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, at least for the sake of the so-called community, that ain't gonna get it. That's
yeah.
why it basically just has to crash and burn. And you know, unfortunately for them, it's just for any of those save the community types. It unfortunately it just ain't gonna happen.
No, no. Yeah, see, we can go elsewhere and build. See, women can't. See, that's one thing that I was trying to explain earlier of what women can't do, and that's get up and go somewhere else and rebuild. See, we can do that. They can't.
Yeah, especially when they get pinned down with Pookie and Ray Ray's kids.
Well, they pick them, so I mean, they reproduce with them, so they lay down with them. So you make your bed, you lie in it. That's just what it is.
Yeah. So, and to me, it's just amazing how there's no vetting that needs to happen based on who they choose to back, as long as they're just pulling their heartstrings and giving them the things that they have been, through their dysfunction, the things that they've allowed themselves to desire, which is to not be accountable and to, scapegoat black men for everything. And if someone comes selling that, how they're so quick to want to, throw money at it and to support that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
these people, again, have no credibility, no credentials, nothing. Just like I mentioned earlier with this Priscilla chick, Princella, whatever her name is, she's getting all this deference. Like anytime you see her in an interview with another woman, they're giving her these softball questions, and they're just acting like she's an authority on something. For all I know, she doesn't have any certifications or anything that I'm aware of, right? I mean, I don't know much about her, but I've heard her say that she went to school for something, but she didn't finish.
Oh, the Princella chick. Yeah, I
Yeah,
heard her say that too. I forgot what.
microbiology or something that
Yeah,
she's not using. She just wants to throw it out there to make herself seem smarter than what she is.
yeah,
And
yeah. I
I
heard her say.
understand that people, you don't. It depends. I mean, you don't have to put all your credentials out there, but
Mhm.
it should be available upon request. Just like me, for example, if someone wants to do business with me, hey, drop me a line. We can exchange. You show me yours, I'll show you mine. If somebody wants to do business, I got all my paperwork.
Yeah.
I got certifications, degree, all of that. Now you don't have to put it on front. Some people do it, and that's cool. They just put everything out front. They put their real name out there. Hey, that's cool. I feel like, hey, it's still the internet, and there's some degree of discretion you should have. But make no mistake about it, I'm who I say I am. And if somebody wants to know me and they will reach out to me and they say, hey, I want to do some business with you. Can I, see your paperwork or whatever? Hey, I got you.
Yeah.
I don't have no problem with that. We're gonna do some real business.
Hmm.
But if just for the purpose of internet, hey, counselor Mr. G will suffice. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Or Dark Knight. I mean, it's all good. But I'm not. I don't have nothing to hide. I'm who I say I am, and I can
Mhm.
back up. In fact, one of my pictures, you can see behind me. I got my stuff on the wall, but I can show what I got. I got my qualifications and certifications, and my history and everything. I can back up what I say.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm papered up when it comes to that. And I'm not even saying you need that, because there's some people in the space who, they still are well read and they still do their research. But at the same time, I have tangible and measurable credentials,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But this
Yeah.
Princella chick, where's hers? Where's her paperwork? But she got all these followers and all this credibility from these, as I said, these uh, lady lemmings who are just following her because she's appealing to their emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and they're leading her down the road to perdition off a cliff as usual.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're once again funding the scammers, and they're funding the people who are ultimately going to lead them to the ruin that they're going to turn around and complain about and or blame black men once again.
Yeah. 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 It's like you can't tell it. Tell it to them. You could tell it to them till you blue in the face, but they still gonna go off that cliff.
Yeah, so at this point, it's not even about saving them. And the reason why I'm even doing this topic and beating this the way I'm beating it is because it's for us to take the initiative to stand up
Yeah.
and start pushing back on these false narratives. And this was a perfect example on how this whole process unfolded, where you had this jackass, degenerate, lying, disgusting roach Rhoda who came out here and knew she could get away with this BS and got the bag and was funded by these same women that keep getting played, but then they will sit here and allow this broad and others to consistently use them. And unfortunately, like I pointed out last week, the destination is the journey. It's not that they had, I feel like the sick part about this is that they still felt like they got their money's worth. That's why they're not protesting about
Yeah.
just to
Yeah.
put that lie out there for the time that they had it. Like I said, short-term benefit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very impulsive. They just wanted to get that out there because there's still some idiots who probably believe the story still.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They out there.
So as far as they're concerned, mission accomplished.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Yeah. Once I hear or research information on my own and I confirm it, I'm done. I'm done with it. It doesn't happen all too often, but when it does happen, and I find out, and it's like, totally different than what it really is, hey, I'm done with it. But you can't
Yeah, but
tell them
that's
that.
called integrity. That's
Yeah.
called having a backbone, being somebody who's standing on principles.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are far too many women in particular who, obviously don't function that way. And it all comes full circle because you can't live in that level of delusion and fake and fraud and it ends well for you. And unfortunately, they keep making these decisions. They keep doing this type of stuff, and then they find someone to blame, and it's always by default black men
Yeah.
when they are clearly the ones who were the problem. When
Yeah.
especially, and this is a perfect example.
Yeah.
And when they cannot shoehorn a black man into the situation to blame them, then they'll get silent. Which is why I say we keep beating this drum on the ass, bringing this
Right.
up because there's been no retractions of note. I'm not familiar with any one of these scallywag broads who came out here with this whole story. I'm not familiar with any one of them who has retracted and said, you know what, my bad. This was a scam. The
Nah.
woman, I have not seen that.
Nah, they not gonna do that, bro.
And again, it's not like we expect it or we, need anything. To me, the vindication is the fact that the people got on their job, and shout out to everybody who did the research, did the homework, and pulled the cover off of this scam. Shout out to them and for the brothers and everybody who's keeping this story going. That's where it's at.
Mhm.
So you don't expect that from them, and that's a testament to how low they are, that we wouldn't even expect them to be decent enough to do that. But
mm,
it would be nice to just see that they are capable of acknowledging something as blatantly obvious as we all can see. And when you would think that when something is that self-evident, that a normal human being will have the presence of mind to say, you know what, it is not what I thought it was. But apparently they're not normal human beings.
yeah, yeah. This goes beyond immature. This goes beyond um, um, taking. She, I don't know, man. This, it just boggles the mind that what's happening. Well, that's what's happening, man. Yeah, I never seen anything like it. I never seen anything like this, man. But I
Yeah,
don't
you're
know.
cutting out.
Yeah, I don't
Now, what
know,
did you
man.
say? You kind of cut out towards.
I was saying I don't know. I never seen anything like this. Uh, the way that they're just flittering money away, you know, it's just crazy. It is. It's just crazy. I never seen anything like it, man.
Yeah, it's probably only going to get worse, and unfortunately for them, a lot of men have already made the decision to get up out of there.
That's the
And
scary part too. You said it'll get worse, and I can definitely see that.
yeah, it's inevitable. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of time. It's not there's no reversing this course. They've reached the point of no return. It's like I told you before. I gave you that word quagmire,
Hmm.
and a quagmire means that once you're in it, no matter what you do, there's no way out.
Mm,
And for example, just think of something like quicksand, right? If you get
mm,
into quicksand or a tar pit or something like that, once
mm,
you're in it for good. And no matter how much you try to struggle, and in fact, the more you struggle, the faster you're going to sink.
yeah.
And that's pretty much where they're at.
Yeah. Mm. They don't care, man.
Oh, well, then, hey, they like it. I love it. That's how they want to go out. Hey, it is what it is. They can't say they haven't been warned.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? When I was growing up, and whenever my mother didn't want to take accountability for something, she would always run. She'd always run, and she ain't never talk about it or anything like
You
that.
mean,
She just never took accountability for anything.
yeah,
Yeah. So, but
yeah, but again,
I
yeah,
just thought it was just like just like a personal thing. I didn't think it was this bad, but it's bad all around, bro. It's
yeah.
only like a few families that I can pretty much think about, like maybe like two, maybe three, you know, that I could think about that will admit something, or they be like, okay, yeah, I was wrong, but they had to be like forced, like back into a corner to admit it.
Hmm.
So really, that really, that doesn't count really, if you got to get back into a corner and you're forced.
Yeah, and and I thought about this a while ago. I said, just the nature of being a woman, it requires them to have some degree of pretense,
Mm, mhm.
because there's
Yeah,
it's okay. It's just like with women wearing makeup and stuff, right?
yeah,
That I'm not one of those guys to say, oh, well, she shouldn't wear any makeup or whatever. Look,
mm,
women are going to dress themselves up or adorn themselves. That's part of their nature, right?
right.
I don't like when they overdo it, with the
Yeah,
and all that cake up looking like a damn clown.
yeah,
Obviously, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that there's certain things. I mean, they're not like it's for as much as we criticize their behavior, some of it is normal. Okay.
mm, mm,
And we have to understand that they don't think like us as well. They should not. There are good things about the nature of women. Obviously, it's been perverted and polluted,
mhm,
and like I told you guys about a month or so ago, it's like water, right?
Mhm.
Or they're like a vessel. You can fill them with clean water, or you can fill them with dirty water. Unfortunately, too many of them been filled with dirty water.
Yeah.
But there's a certain level of pretense that's okay, certain
Mhm.
level of discretion, certain level of, how can I put it? Well, I guess I would just say pretense, a certain
Mhm.
level.
Mhm.
They have to kind of create certain images for themselves, because again, that's the main thing that attracts us to them as men. We don't expect much from them outside of them looking good and having the right attitude.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of them have to, you know, put on certain, I don't know if I want to say an act, or they have to behave in a certain way if they want to accommodate or acquiesce to what we want. So
Mhm.
I don't mind a certain level of pretense, a certain level.
Mhm.
But now it's way off the charts. It's
Yeah, way off the charts.
That's the problem. But I
Yeah.
think some guys lose focus on, they're trying to judge them by our standard as men. I don't think
Mhm.
that's fair, because we're rooted in reality. We don't have a luxury to be delusional about anything.
Mhm.
They can afford to be just like a child, right? And I'm not saying women or children. I'm saying that you
Mhm.
give a child a little grace, just like if they want to have an imaginary friend or something like that, right? That's delusion,
Yeah.
but you don't mind a child doing that. But by the time they reach a
Mhm.
certain age, you're like, you got to let that go.
Well, that's innocence. That's kind of an innocent thing. What they're
Right.
what women are doing is not innocent.
No, I'm not talking about the extreme of what we've been talking about. I'm talking about just
Yeah.
the fact that there's a different standard. Just like
Mhm.
you're not going to compare a child to an adult when it
Yeah.
comes to the level of, imagination or delusion. The child, you may think it's normal for the
Mhm.
child to have an imaginary friend or whatever they're doing compared to an adult. And
Yeah.
like I said, you can't compare women to men as far as our connection to reality. Some
Yeah.
of them are going to just not want to deal with certain facts that we have to deal with as men. That
Mhm.
that's okay to a limited level,
Mhm.
because we're not the same. They have to have a certain level of pretense as women. That's all I'm saying. But the problem is, it's gone way off the chart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm saying it like that to kind of let men understand that, um, in some cases you have to give the proper perspective that they're not like us. Just like, we say they can't do what we do.
Mhm.
Um, you know, we're not we don't look at things the same.
No. No.
But in their case, it's kind of like and with the society reinforcing the lack of accountability and the pretense and the delusion, that's become, and with the advent of feminism and all that, that's what's kind of taken that and exacerbate their nature at its core, and it's kind of just made it like overgrown, right?
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a problem, and it's gotten out of hand. It's got it out of control, and it's like I don't know. It's like they don't even want to address the problem and notice that it's there, so it can fester and grow and grow and grow, and it's out of control like it is now. It's crazy.
Yep. And like I said, just like I say, Cynthia G is poison ivy, just like those plants, you
Yeah.
know, the toxicity she spread everywhere. That's why, like I said, when I mash them up in this KRU Night Riders universe, you're gonna see. I'm gonna put the roster out there. I'm gonna show you all these parallel characters, and they're
Yeah,
gonna
she'll be.
match up perfectly.
Yeah, yeah, she'll make a perfect poison ivy.
Yeah, that's who she is over here. But
Yeah.
she's also cybernetic and synthetic G. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, we're gonna be wrapping up the show. But yeah, I think we got another classic in the tank.
Oh,
Yeah. So anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, there's no need to save the quote unquote black community. It's already gone. Okay, we can only um, remember what it was, and it's just time to just move on and just try to rebuild.
Yeah, and I think that people get it twisted. They think when those of us who take this position, I mean, I can only speak for myself.
Mhm.
It's as if they think that we are taking pleasure of saying this. I mean,
Right.
it's no pleasure saying it. I mean, we're just
No
pointing out what's
pleasure at
fact.
all. Yeah.
It's not like we're happy, yay. It's
Right.
nothing. We grew up in the black community too, right? I
Right.
remember the time where we had really a nice community. Just like I'm from
Right.
Chi-Town, and as much as I hear people talking about Chi, I'm like, dude, I grew up there, and it was not always like that. It
Right.
was actually a nice place to be back in the day.
Yeah, I love Chicago, man.
Yeah, that's when I keep hearing these people. Some of these guys I'm gonna have to check a little bit, but that's I'm gonna put that on the Counselor G channel because a few guys I think just kind of talking about Chi Time and they don't really know. I'm gonna have to put things in perspective. So I'm gonna have to
Yes.
drop some heat.
Chi-Town, that's a fun town, man.
It used to be better
It
because
used
like I
to be,
said, I was
yeah.
born and raised there. But yeah,
Mhm.
nowadays it's unfortunately it's still not as bad as some cities. But I'm gonna get into that. But I'm not
Mhm.
trying to be. I'm not trying to set trip or nothing. Because I obviously don't live there anymore. So I left for a reason. But
Yeah.
truth be told, if I lived in any of those major cities, I would have left. I
Yeah.
left the country. I didn't just move from there to another city. The
Mhm.
whole country, as far as I'm concerned, is becoming, unfortunately for many people, unlivable. But
Mhm.
um, getting back to what I was saying, they tend to think that somehow there's some glee or some type of pleasure just when we
Right.
say this stuff. No, it's just the
That's far from
hardcore.
the
It's just the
far from the
hardcore
truth.
fact. Yeah.
Yeah, far from the truth, man.
I still got
That is
loved ones that live there. I still got
right.
people that, I want the best for.
Right. Right.
I don't take pleasure in the fact that, the community looks the way it does. No way.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you actually grew up and straight remember, you going to the penny candy store,
Yeah.
get that big old bag of candy,
Oh
and
yeah, man.
you know,
Non-laters and Boston baked beans
yeah,
and all that
y'all
stuff. Yeah.
all y'all mobbed up as children, and y'all going back home and stuff, and you
Yeah. And
know,
I thought about it. I said we didn't ever worry about getting shot or
no
nobody had
didn't.
guns. That wasn't even a thing.
That was unheard of,
The only
bro.
time we might have heard
Unheard of.
about somebody getting shot was one of our grandparents sitting around playing Keno, talking
Mhm.
about one of our uncles that shot somebody in a juke joint somewhere down south. Yo,
Yeah,
Uncle so and so, he shot so and so. Yeah, that's the only time you would have heard something about somebody getting shot when I was a kid growing up.
right.
I didn't go to school. Me and my friends walking back and forth, and I grew up in Shy. Like I said,
Mhm.
we didn't hear about no stuff like that. The first time I started hearing about gunplay and Shy, I was well into high school.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And then I noticed
Mhm.
dramatically, and I started hearing about people getting shot. In fact, as I was going into high school, one of my favorite cousins got killed. And that
Mhm.
kind of shocked me because, like I said, I think that was the first person that I heard of, because he was just a few years older than me.
Mhm.
And he was one of my favorite cousins. And unfortunately, he was on the east side in Chicago. He was a good dude. He was actually the
Mhm.
son of my favorite uncle. So
Mhm.
he's my favorite uncle's son, and he was my favorite cousin.
Mhm.
I got heard he got killed, man. That messed me. Gave me nightmares.
Mhm. I'm sorry to hear that.
And I heard about that just as I was going into high school. But
Mhm.
it was crazy. But that was the first time we started hearing about people getting shot, and then throughout high school. But in my formative years growing up, when we were like in grammar school, all those years going, whether you say from kindergarten all through eighth grade, as kids, we would walk to school, be out all, at different times. We had to go come
Yeah.
on when the street light came on or whatever. But
Yeah.
if we
Me
were
too.
out, we didn't have to worry about getting shot. We didn't hear about nothing like that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You might have
Yeah.
had to worry about getting jumped on or something, but
Yeah.
you
But you
weren't.
live to fight another day.
Yeah, there wasn't nobody getting shot.
No.
When no, yeah. But But yeah, but again, we got fond memories. I think often about the fun I had growing up in the shy.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Yeah, actually, I miss them actually, but those
Yeah, I
days are
miss a lot
long
of days,
gone.
man. I'm like, man, yeah, man, I'm just reminiscing.
Yeah,
And that's why I kind of get offended when I hear people, trying to either say like somehow people are taking pleasure in saying this stuff, or they're
yeah,
just really talking about things that they don't really understand.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's just a misunderstanding, but we definitely don't take pleasure in saying that it's done. It pains me. It really does.
Yeah, yeah, but it's unfortunate. It's just the reality. And
Yeah, yeah, that's just reality. Yeah,
contrary to what Priscilla said, we ain't delusional. So
yeah, and we do have feelings, so
yeah,
that's
as men, we just happen to be man enough and integral enough to see the reality for what it is and not what we would like it to be.
yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. So anyway, y'all, we got another one in the tank. Like I said, I believe this was another great show.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, we're gonna end it here. So tune in next week and we'll be back in action. But like I said, we're not just a podcast, we're a squadcast. There's a very big difference. Mission complete, over and out.